Hey, good afternoon, everybody. And Port Richmond, when we were kids, growing up in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, have been phenomenal. And with that being said, today I'm joined by Robert Folger Jr. What's up, Rob?
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Had the pleasure of interviewing you again. First one was at the North Catholic video, and now place where we grew up.
Hey, yeah, you do an awesome job. I enjoy it.
I try. Hey, do my best, man. So, Bob, what year were you born?
I was born in 1969, January.
And what part of Port Richmond were you from?
I grew up right at Gaul and Venango, and I lived there until I guess I started my years at North, and then we moved over to Thompson and Venango. So it's a great area. I miss it so much.
How far back in your childhood do you remember?
I can remember back to the days when I used to play with the gang on Gall Street, and all those good times driving around on the big wheels and playing halfies on the business building that we had across the street. I can remember back to those days pretty good.
Good times, man. Good times. Life was simple back then.
Yes, it was real simple. It was laid back. Everybody cared about one another. It was a great time.
And you can sleep with your windows open.
Yes, and not have to worry about anybody coming in, which you don't find too often today.
Nah, you don't. Times have changed. So, growing up as a kid in Port Richmond, just in Philadelphia in general too, we always treasured our Saturdays and Sundays because your parents were home from work. The shows that were on, great cartoons. What was your Saturday and well, basically, what was your weekend routine at home?
Well, basically, I had to get up in the morning, and my mom and dad were the mall people. So I'd have to take the ride early in the morning up to the old Neshaminy Mall or Oxford Valley. Then I would come back home, and then a lot of the guys, we would either end up going down to Samuel's Playground, where we'd play halfies on the street, ride the old big wheels when we were even younger. It was a lot of good times back then. Everybody in the community, no matter where you lived, we all got together and played with one another.
So I was born in the 70s, so I'm not familiar with the 60s. What kind of cartoons and what kind of shows were when you were a kid?
I'm trying to let me see, We used to watch a lot of Fred Flintstone and that gang on.
Sorry about that, Bob.
That's okay.
Wife called. My son always forgetting stuff.
Hey, you got to answer when the boss calls.
So I apologize. So what
okay.
what were the shows that you guys were watching in the 60s?
I would watch the Flintstones. You would have Bugs Bunny on in the morning on Saturdays. And I think during the week, it was like the Brady Bunch. That was the big thing to watch, the Partridge Family. Those were the kind of shows that I watched when I was growing up.
Yeah. So when it came to sports, Port Richmond was known for various sports. What sport did you play growing up?
I played baseball a lot, but I didn't play in Port Richmond. I used to play up at Samuel's a lot with the guys in the neighborhood, but growing up, I had a lot of friends that were still up in Bridesburg too. So a couple of us played for the Bridesburg Fathers Club, where the Betsy Ross Bridge was on Richmond Street, the fields that we used to have there.
And the grade school. Where did you attend grade school?
I went to St. George's. Since we lived right there at Gall Street, most of the people on Gall, Miller, Belgrade, Alman, the 35 and the 3600 blocks, we went to St. George's. It was right down at Salmon and Venango. So it was real close. So that's where I went as a kid.
So growing up with all your buddies that you went to school with, obviously you go to school for the day. What was your guys' routine like after school and on weekends? Who were the buddies you hung out with, and what did you guys do?
Looking back in the days, I hung out with the Showskis. The Showskis lived 2 doors away from me on Gall Street. Ricky and Timmy LeBenz. Joey Antonelli, who lived up at Richmond and Castor, I believe. Austin Flory. Mike McAllister lived right on back of me on Miller Street, so we used to go and be in the backyards together. That was a lot of the gang from St. George's. Bobby Wilkowski, Tommy Leonard, that was on Venango. we all pretty much hung around at the same time. We'd meet up Samuel's after you always had to do your homework right away when you got home from school with our parents. Then after that, you were allowed out front and walking around with the gang to hook up and play ball and things like that.
So during the '60s, what was give us a younger guys a little perspective. What was Port Richmond like? What was the vibe?
Port Richmond was one of the greatest places in the world to grow up. You could go out on the street, you could be playing out there. If you fell down, any parent that was in the neighborhood would come out and make sure you were okay. We ate at one another's houses all the time. The only thing that you couldn't do was you couldn't be bad because whatever parent saw you would grab you, beat the crap out of you,
Yeah,
and then send you back home. And my parents would beat the crap out of me a second time.
and that's the thing. When we were growing up, there was accountability for yourself. And like you said, it could have been your buddies, it could have been your neighbor. If they caught you doing something, you got in trouble with them. And you got home, you got it worse from the parents.
Oh yeah, my parents wouldn't even ask what happened. It was just like bam, and I couldn't get away with anything because I was the only child.
Right.
So I didn't have an excuse to or any say, yo, this person did it, and I was like, you did it, and we don't want to hear what happened. That's it.
Yeah. So the holidays have always been special, anywhere from New Year's to Christmas, Thanksgiving. What was the holidays like at your house for each specific?
The holidays were really nice. We really didn't have anything at my house on Wall Street. We would go down to my grandparents who lived at Miller and Westmoreland. And all my family, my cousins, everyone, including neighbors at Miller and Westmoreland, we would all go to my grandmother, Joe and Agnes's house. And it was a great time, especially Christmas, because everybody came over for Christmas Eve. No matter if you had any differences the night before, you left them outside, you went inside, and you just celebrated the holiday together. And that's what I miss the most now. I mean, my mom has passed away, both of my grandparents have. Most of my family is gone. It's only my cousin and myself and my father left, the three of us. So they were the greatest times. You really had a good time messing around with the whole gang.
Well, we got Halloween coming up, and I know growing up down at Port Richmond at Salmon and Cambria, we always had an incredible time. I mean, coming home with a full bag of candy. What was Halloween like up where you're at and during your era?
Halloween was real great there because exactly what you said. You would go around, we'd go around once, we'd go back home, empty our bags, and then we'd go out back again and do it. And you don't really see, and you could walk around by yourself. You didn't have to worry about if somebody was behind you to jump on you or anything like that. The parents would sit on the steps. It was the friendliest atmosphere around. Where I'm up in North Wales now, and I'm lucky if maybe 5 or 6 people actually come, where we used to be 50, 60, 70 kids at a time.
Yeah,
So they were great days.
yeah, yeah. So as you get older, from I remember from our previous conversation, you were another North Catholic Falcon like myself. Life changes. You meet new friends. Some of your the grade school guys you went to school with go to different schools. How did life change any bit for you once you went to high school?
Oh yeah, it changed drastically. I mean, that's the other side of life that we didn't see going to grade school. You had to mature real quick. You had to study a different way. I mean, we got up in the morning when I lived at Thompson and Venango. We would take the 89 sometimes down to the L, hop on the L, and get off at North Catholic. A lot of times, however, when the weather got bad, even when it snowed, we would walk all the way from Thompson and Venango all the way up to North.
Oh
We'd
wow.
go all the way up Castor Avenue, all the way over, take the shortcut past Wheatsheaf Lane and all that. So they were great times at North.
So again, once you're into your teenage years, obviously you leave those big wheels and maybe the stick ball behind, possibly stick ball. I don't know. I'm sure sports goes in. You're into your teenage years. So in the '60s, during your teenage years, I mean, what did you guys do for fun? You could leave all the legal stuff out.
What we would do for fun, we would go to all the North dances, and you know how those were. It was a great time because that was the time when you started to find out what it was like to kiss a girl, to be in a relationship. We went to a lot of Phillies games back then, Flyers games. Those were the big things for us. I was a big sports fan my whole life, and the gang that I was with, we always went out to the sports events, and that's mostly what we did. Where we'd go to the North Frankfurt game when it became November. and all that. So I was a big sports fan, and most of the guys that I hung with. In fact, we were just talking about it the other day, some of the old guys, about if the Phils make it to the World Series, we're going to the game again.
Yeah. I'm just watching the game. It's on now. Last time I checked, the Phillies were up 7-3 on the Braves, which is awesome. Of course, our pitching isn't all that great, but 60s had some really good. I mean, you had the Broad Street Bullies, if I'm not mistaken, back
Yep.
then, and the Phillies had some great teams. But yeah,
Oh,
I mean, it would have been a great time.
the players back then were incredible. It was incredible to go to a game and see Bernie Perrant in the goal, and then you'd see Dave Schultz. If somebody looked at him the wrong way, he would check them, and he'd be in the hugest hockey fight that we've seen, and we would just be sitting there in awe, like, wow, look at this. It was a real good time.
So digging back to the childhood, what would have been some of your most memorable moments growing up in Port Richmond?
Some of my most memorable moments, where I'll tell you one that really gets me, it gets me in a bad way. There was a cemetery at Belgrade and Venango. It was between Almond and Belgrade. And some of us guys got together. I think it was myself, John Calhoun, and Michael McAllister. It was a snowy day in the winter. We walked through the cemetery, and we wanted to see how far we could throw snowballs. Well, here comes a trash truck down the road. We were in the cemetery. We throw the snowballs. Well, here the driver had the window down. It went inside the window. One of us that threw it, it hit him, and then he crashed into the fence of the cemetery. We were all like, oh no, we just laid down by the graves and didn't move. I mean, those were the days. But then we got up, and of course I went home and told my dad. Well, my dad picked up so-and-so, called their father, and we all got the crap beat out of us later that night. But those were like the good times. You could walk around the neighborhood, you could bump into anybody, go to Samuel's and play pickleball, those games and all. It was a great time.
So when you're out playing, see a lot of kids nowadays, they don't know about curfew. So when you guys are out playing, one of the things you see on Facebook a lot was when the street lights came on, it was time to go home. You didn't have to have the parents call you. You knew. What was it like? I mean, what was your guys' curfew time? Like, when did you guys know it was time to come in?
Well, it was pretty much up until before the high school years at North. You would, like you said, we'd be up at Samuel's hanging out at the tables up there, just talking. And when you saw the sun start to go down, and once you couldn't see the sun anymore, you had to be back home. That was the time to come in. So I guess you could say around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Then when you went to North, you were allowed to stay out later. You could even take the car if we were even driving them, but you had to be back by 10:30 at the latest. I mean, my parents were tough. It was 10:30.
Yeah.
And if I was in a minute later, well, guess what? You don't get the car tomorrow and you don't go out.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this question. What do you think the difference in Port Richmond today from the Port Richmond from years ago?
Well, it just seems like there's a lot of great friends that still live in Port Richmond. And it's a different philosophy with people that have children and own homes nowadays. Like our parents, everyone helped one another, and we had to do the same. Where I've been back to Port Richmond a few times, and it just like somebody seems like people don't have the care like we were taught to have, especially the younger children. I mean, I've seen some younger children when I was down in that area. Like I went to the Home Depot down there, and here's a person with a walker trying to get in through the door and having a good time. And these young kids are cutting in front of them when they could have just held the door for the man. It's things like that. I thought we were raised just to really respect one another. I mean, even if you got into a fist fight with your friend, then an hour later you were friends again. You made up, you shook hands, and you were friends again.
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about all this extracurricular stuff that's going on in the city, right?
No, not at all.
So let me ask you some of these questions. We all had some great neighborhood stores, mom and pop shops where you can go to the corner store and you had a credit. Remember they had credits back then.
Yep.
What was the corner stores that you guys, your family used to go to?
The corner stores that I went to a lot were Hecker's at Mercer and Venango. Mr. Hecker in there, he had that tremendous radio ball, the water ice with the ice cream at the back. We went to, I think it was Frank's across the street, that at the time they had more of the grocery food, would cut the luncheonette style. I think it was called Frank and Betty's maybe. And then when I would go down to see my grandparents at Miller and Westmoreland, I would go up to the Eggle shop that was at Gall and Allegheny, because they had those candy oranges that were coated with powder or whatever. They were out of the world. Those were the two that I really went to a lot, especially Heckers, because in the back there, they always had the pinball machine. So everybody got to try to get the high score. And if you got the high score, your name went on top of the machine. So you got to brag for a couple of days till somebody beat it.
Yeah. Great times back then. Great times. And like I said, a lot less to worry about. So I just want to ask you, is there anything else that you wanted to share with everybody about growing up in Port Richmond?
Like I think I've become a better person than I thought I would be with the way I was taught by my parents, and I have to thank them a lot. It's still great. It's funny. You can go maybe 10, sometimes 15 years and bump into somebody that you grew up with, and you talk like you never left each other's side, which I find really nice. I talk to the Showskis a lot. I bumped into Tommy Leonard, who was over in New Jersey, and it's just like we're friends now. We actually contact each other more now. Austin Flory, who in fact got engaged today, so I was very happy for Austin, and it's just a great family atmosphere that I don't think you see with the young ones today.
Yeah. And that's why I believe this is important. Again, when I did the North videos, the Hallahan videos, now Port Richmond videos, and I appreciate you, coming on again with me with this other topic. But again, these are memories that if people don't talk about them, that are just going to fall at the wayside, and they'll never be seen again. But again, thank you for sharing your memories of growing up in Port Richmond, and yeah, thank you for taking time out of your day.
And well, I thank you too, Johnny. I think it's incredible what you're doing, and myself, and I'm sure a lot of others, what you do makes a difference, because this is what the kids of today need to see, how important it is to throw something that's on your shoulder if you have a bad day with somebody, that just, it's time to say sorry and let's move on again, because we'll be friends for life, and that's important.
Yeah. Well, Bob, thank you for coming on. And if I don't see you again, have a happy Halloween, by the way.
Yes, right around the corner.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff when it comes up, and do us all a favor and stay safe.
Okay, you too, and us brother Falcons always stay together.
Amen. Bob,
All
take
right.
care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.